These are some good-looking apples. Now, we'll have to see how this new variety works for my maple apple bites. I'll start by preheating the oven to 225, so it's a rather low oven because what I'm doing is actually drying the apples, but I'm going to dry them with maple syrup and icing sugar on them, so they kind of turn into toffee apples as they dry. You can use a few varieties of apples. These ginger golds had a nice sweetness to them, so I think they'll dry very well. You could use a crispin, sometimes called a mutsu, or a Granny Smith. Anything that you would use in an apple pie would work in a recipe like this. First, I'll sift about 3 tablespoons of icing sugar into the bowl. And I'm going to sift a dusting of icing sugar over the parchment paper. The parchment means the apples won't stick, but I just want a thin layer of sweetness under the apples as they slowly bake. I need to make a bit of a glaze, so it's a combination of icing sugar and maple syrup in equal measurements. In all the baking that I've done over the years, I've learned something about maple syrup. When you bake it in the oven, it crisps up. And I'll just let the icing sugar sit and dissolve into the maple syrup. Yum. And then slice the apples as thinly as I can. So a little goes a long way. You slice up 2 apples, and you've got enough sweet treats for 5 hungry girls. You can easily do it with pears, too. I'll just take the pits out of the apple. I don't need to core the apple. I like how that star detail is in the inside. I just pull out the seeds. And it's a smart idea as you're baking them to rotate them, because every oven, no matter how good it is, has sort of a hot spot and a sweet spot. Hard to believe this is just 2 apples. And with the pastry brush, I just brush the top of each apple with the maple sugar glaze. I'll put these in the oven for 2 hours. I'll turn them once or twice, and then I can put on the finishing touches of chopped pecans and cinnamon. Chopping some pecans finely to sprinkle on top. So they're not just plain old dried apple slices. They've got that toffee apple flavor from the maple syrup. And then the finishing touch, a few pecans and a little bit of cinnamon too. Okay. Yeah, these have come along nicely. So they've crisped up. They don't really take on too much color right now. All right. It's amazing how much smaller they get. It makes you realize how much water is in an apple. They really shrink up. Brush these with a finishing basting of maple syrup. This also makes a nice garnish for on top of a dessert, on a scoop of ice cream, or on top of a slice of cheesecake. Then, because of the maple syrup, the pecans will stick on top, and then a little pinch of cinnamon on each. And in just 20 minutes, these will be done, and then I can make my last recipe before I finally get to go shopping in my own living room.